Namaste, friends, and welcome back to my channel. This is, oh my god, day 3 of the big Indian lockdown during the corona crisis. Yeah, thank god now we are both homebound, so there is time for very, very challenging stuff like this. Sri Lankan pumpkin curry from yesterday, rice, chole. I have not completely lost my mind yet, but I am really eager to get outdoors because the whole house stinks of fish that we had yesterday. Ooh. A lot of people in the West think that India is such a dirty country. Whenever they hear that I live here, they're just like, what? But it's so dirty there, how can you stand it? And sure, there is a lot of trash out in the streets, and bacteria, pollution and dust spreads easily, but that is exactly why Indian people know so well how to take care of hygiene. There is so much that we Western people can learn about the Indian way. And now I'm going to tell you the 7 things that India can teach the West when it comes to hygiene. Number 1 is washing your hands. Like I said, Indian people tend to think that everything and everyone is dirty, and here the average person does a lot of things just using their hands. So when they fix things and make things, they use their hands. When they go to the toilet, they clean themselves with their left hand, not the right one. When they cook, they use their hands. And when they eat, they wash their hands. So obviously, especially when eating, you really have to have clean hands. So that is why you keep washing your hands regularly throughout the day. When you go out and come back, you wash your hands. When you start cooking, you wash your hands. Eating, you wash your hands. After the toilet, you always wash your hands. And that is, I think, the most important thing about maintaining good hygiene. Whereas in the West, we just don't use our hands that much anymore in the daily life. In the toilet, we use tissue roll. When we're cooking, we have all these different kinds of utensils. When we're eating, we have forks, knives and spoons and whatever. So I think that that has kind of taken us further away from the sensation of our hands, so we don't wash them that regularly anymore. And can you believe, guys, there are so many people who don't even wash their hands after the toilet. I used to be one of them. I'm not anymore because I'm an Indian now. Number 2 is the Indian style toilets. Wait, yeah, that is also the number 2. Pun was not intended. Anyways, Indian toilets, and you know I'm talking about the squat toilets. Okay, when we are at home, I definitely prefer the Western kind of toilets where I can just like sit and relax, but the Indian squat toilet is so much more hygienic, and especially when I'm traveling or out in the town, I just really prefer using the squat toilet because public toilets and sitting down when there's like tons of people out there using the same toilet, that's just, yeah. When I'm traveling, I use the squat toilet because I don't want my butt to get any dirtier than it already is. Another thing about the Indian toilets, which you probably come across in social media with all the memes and all that, is how Western people are currently just hoarding all the stores empty of tissue rolls. Like, seriously, what is up with us foreigners? I have no idea, but it just feels like such a horror scene if during the quarantine we would run out of tissue roll because we're just not used to cleaning ourselves after the toilet with a bum gun or just using a mug and our hands. So we use tons of tissue roll, which can be really wasteful and probably even isn't the most hygienic way, because let's think it like that. If you get crap on your hair, Do you wipe it off or do you wash it off? You know what you're going to choose. So in India, you've traditionally been always using a mug and your hand to clean yourself, and then refer to my point number 1, you always wash your hands after cleaning yourself in the toilet. Of course, these days you also use bum guns quite a lot in the middle class houses here in India, but it is very rare for an Indian person to use tissue roll to clean themselves after using the toilet. Point number 3, which is hankies. In India, you don't really have this wasteful single-use tissue culture, but even from very early on in the childhood, in schools and in the families, you are taught to always carry your handkerchief. Point proven. This is my husband's handkerchief, which he always keeps handy by the door. I have never owned a handkerchief myself. Because as I already mentioned earlier, you do a lot of things with your hands, and then maybe you're sweating on your face and having a little bit of a runny nose. So you always have to carry your handkerchief to take care of those issues. And then there is one minor thing about the Indian culture, which I came to learn very late on during my time here in India, and I was just shocked when I heard about this from my husband. And that is that Indian people do not blow their nose in the public, which I was doing for 4 years, and now I'm trying not to do that, even though I have a very, very runny nose always. But in the West, in the buses, in the stores, and wherever, you can just like see people blowing their noses so much and just coughing and all that. And because obviously we don't have our tissues that often with us when we are somewhere outdoors. We just either do this elbow grease thing, or worse, many people just like give it all out into the air. And that is how diseases spread. Point number 4, and that is Indian people showering often and thoroughly. And that is because Indian people just tend to think of even themselves as dirty, especially when they go out and sweat in their daily tasks and activities. And with all the dust and pollution just settling in, it's really understandable why they would think that way. So of course, everyone showers at least once a day, often even twice a day. And oh my God, I've never seen anyone scrub themselves as clean as an Indian person. Many people use a loofah and always lots of soap and just like scrubbing until basically their skin is coming off. And I have to say that sometimes in the West, we might not be even showering once a day. I don't do that always even in India, because that just like somehow, if I don't have enough time, that's the first thing that drops off of my daily tasks. Embarrassing, I know, but I at least do not go out socializing when I haven't taken a shower, because it's completely unacceptable in India for a person themselves to be out about and dirty in front of other people. Point number 5, and I have to firstly mention that this is actually something that Finland does as well, but I know for certain that it's not the case in most of the Western world, and that is that Indian people, like Finns, leave their shoes out by the door when they enter the house. And I think that is seriously one of the best things that we have in common with each other's cultures. So you do not step into the house wearing your outdoor shoes, because obviously then you would be bringing even more dirt into the house, all the dust and sand with the shoes, bacteria from the streets and whatnot, and that would just lead to you having to clean the house even more often than you already do, which is a really big task. So always leave your shoes by the door. Rest my case. Point 6, which is cleaning the house daily. This brings back so many memories from when I had my first flat alone in Vizag, where I had 3 bedrooms and a kitchen and a hall. And oh my God, what a mess, because I just did not have the time to be cleaning the house daily, and I did not have a maid. But in India, you definitely have to clean the house every day to keep the house clean and hygienic. It's of course because you don't really have glass windows in most of the houses, so through the nets in the windows you get pollution and dust so easily into the houses. And then of course with the people visiting so often and there being like lots of traffic in and out the door, there just is always dirt coming into the house. And it's completely unacceptable to have a house where you have a small puja room or a little temple that there would be dirt for the gods. No, 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 you do not do that. You give a clean house for your temple and your body that is your temple too, and you keep the house neat and tidy. But in the West, you have glass windows, and with the huge differences in the temperature when it's cold outdoors and you want to keep the heat inside the apartment, you don't get the dust and pollution coming indoors from the outside, and you don't see the dirt just gathering up on the surfaces, and then you don't even clean the growing bacteria away. Yeah, maybe if you spill something when you're cooking or eating, you just quickly wipe it off with a paper tissue that you have in the kitchen, whereas in India you just clean the whole counter all over again. But since in the West we don't see the dirt so quickly as we do here in India, we don't clean as often. And I have a tendency that I only start cleaning once I see that something is clearly getting dirty, and in Finland that can very well take over a week, and in that time can you even imagine how much there can be bacteria on the counters? Coronavirus. And number 7, which is seriously one of the weirdest habits that I think I've seen in India, and that is the way that an average Indian person drinks water from a bottle or a cup. It just baffles me how it's possible for an Indian person to drink the water from here, and actually I think the record-breaking height where I've seen a person do that is just... And the water will still very straight fall into their mouth and they'll just gulp it down, and I cannot fathom how that happens, because obviously in the West we just gulp it like here. And I do get the logic with this habit. It's that especially back in the day, Indian people would share the cups and utensils, and it's not okay to leave your saliva and bacteria for the next person to get a sip of water from the cup. So yeah, old habits stick hard, right? But then new habits, no, no, no. I have been trying to do this thing a few times, but it just always ends up with all the water just falling on my chest, and I'm just wasting all that precious pure water. I will never learn to do this thing. Oh, and a bonus point. So I guess there are 8 things that Indian people can teach the West about hygiene. So you know how in the West we greet each other with handshakes and the very sophisticated sensual cheek kisses like the French and Italian people? Well, that does not fly by in India. In India, you just do not have the habit of touching other people. I think that's because of the old divides between men and women and different castes, when it's just not permissible for the 2 different parties to touch each other. So in India, we of course have the habit of saying namaste and from a good distance. Though I have to say that there is one thing that at least us Finns can teach Indians about hygiene, and that is maintaining a good social distance. Because even though it's not okay to touch other people when you're greeting or interacting anyways, social distance is not a thing in India. You just are so flocked together all the time and in such a big crowd that it's just very impossible to get your own personal sphere of at least like 1 meter to all directions. So this is maybe the one and only thing that the Indian people could learn during this crisis. Thank you. Subscribe to my channel, and then after doing that, clean your keyboard every now and then too, because that thing also gathers a lot of bacteria. And if you're doing it on the phone, clean the phone too. I should actually go and do it now too.